Good. I can feel your anger. Let the hate flow through you. And let's do the spoiler review for Rise of Skywalker. What is up, guys? It's time for the spoiler review for Rise of Skywalker. This is going to be a little bit more laid back than my normal reviews. I just want to break this sucker open and just talk about it because Star Wars is unlike any other franchise. The fans go nuts. They go crazy for this franchise. I say Star Wars fans, and I am one of them, I'm one of you, we are the most toxic fans. We really are. And the internet age definitely doesn't help. But this stuff was even going on way back, in the 80s when the original trilogy was out in the late 70s. But it was like a tenth of what it is now. There's so much pressure. Everything matters. And it's interesting. It's just a really interesting thing to discuss. And before we dig deep, let's talk about like the internet culture and the hate train. I remember when I was 10 years old, the first Star Wars movie I saw in the theater was Return of the Jedi. And I was just this little kid. I didn't know anything about Star Wars, really. I knew of the movies before Return of the Jedi, but I was just going to a movie to eat popcorn and have fun. And I walked out of the movie just completely elated, and I had a blast. There was no internet. There was no YouTube with umpteen videos about how The Empire Strikes Back completely ruined Star Wars in their childhood and all that stuff. None of that existed. And so it's interesting to look at it now under the microscope and how this sequel trilogy is being treated. And I will say, I have my problems with this trilogy. I like Force Awakens, Last Jedi. I liked it at first. I don't like it that much now. And if you call bullshit on somebody that changes their opinion on Star Wars, I would say that there is no other franchise that fans change their opinion on more than this franchise. I think your ranking of these movies will probably change over time. It's just the way it is. And it'll be interesting to see in 10 years where this sequel trilogy will land in people's hearts and minds after all the fever has went away, Because at the end of the day, they're movies. And I walked out of Rise of Skywalker leaving a Star Wars movie, and I had a great time. And sure, I'm sure there were people in the theater that didn't have a good time, and there's people out you that hate this movie with a purple passion. If you really hate this movie that much, what did you want? And I'm not saying this movie's perfect. I'm not saying that people are wrong about problems with this movie. Everybody has their Star Wars movie in mind. I do, you do, and that's part of the problem. Really, I was talking to my son about this. They pretty much made the movie that I wanted. Me, as a person, I wanted what they gave me in Rise of Skywalker. I did. And it's just an interesting thing to look at fan service. Like, what is fan service? If a movie has scenes that we like, isn't that kind of considered fan service? And no two fans are the same? But at the end of the day, we're screaming, don't give me what I want. Or that's what some people are screaming. It's a weird thing, and I'm not trying to like poke at all of you. I'm just saying it's just a weird thing to discuss. It's interesting. It's very interesting. But, as I was talking about me being a 10-year-old kid, I kind of wanted to do a little bit of an experiment. So what I did was I posted on Killer Flicks and I posted on Twitter, those that have kids, what did your kids think about this movie? And I'm going to read you a couple of those answers. So on Killer Flicks, I'm going to go with the first one here. Joshua Oglesby said, my niece fell asleep and she was upset about the fake death, but she liked it. Scrolling down here, Ian Murphy says, me and my nephews loved it, though the reveal of a certain character at the beginning scared the crap out of them. Other than that, they loved it. Probably talking about Sidious. And Hannah Forsagna says, I went with my 8-year-old son and he absolutely loved it as much as I did. He loves all the Star Wars movies. Proud parent. So there's just an idea. I was just kind of curious about what kids think of this movie, because a lot of kids, they're not as in touch with internet culture as we are. I guess maybe some of them are, but I don't think they know about the Star Wars hate train as much as we do. You know, we get passionate. I mean, super, super passionate about this franchise. But anyway, this is a spoiler review. I'm going to talk about everything spoilerish in this movie. First off, I mean, let's talk about Palpatine. We knew that Palpatine was going to be in this movie in some form or another. I was shocked that Palpatine was actually Rey's grandfather. That was a shocker to me, and really that explained so much about who Rey was as a character throughout this whole trilogy. You know, and I remember like watching in the Force fight in The Force Awakens, the way she fought was similar to the style that Palpatine fights in Episode 3. But it also explains kind of her like freakish powers and lack of training, you know, because I'm not saying Sith are stronger than Jedi, but Sith, they don't have any limits. You know, they unleash everything in terms of the Force. It's like they don't have a governor on the Force whatsoever. It's just unlimited power. I mean, he even says that, unlimited power in Episode 3. So that made Rey's journey throughout this whole thing make a lot more sense, actually. And I will say, J.J. Abrams, I don't know if he's lying or not, but he did say that Palpatine was going to be a villain from the beginning. You know, he was always planned. Now, The Last Jedi wasn't planned as far as JJ's mind, but Palpatine was always in there. I love that Palpatine is in this movie. And let's talk about how Palpatine is in this movie and we don't hear of him in the previous two movies. Because if you think back to the prequel trilogy, Palpatine was a big part of that. You know, he's in all three movies. But at the end of Return of the Jedi, Vader throws him down that shaft and, you know, he is hurt. I mean, it's not like he escaped and then he was completely healthy all the way. They even show us like his hands are completely gone. His sole purpose in this movie is to come back with, you know, full unlimited power and energy and pull the strings, and that's what he does throughout this whole movie. You really think that, does this guy care about his niece, or is everything a piece of the puzzle for him to rule the galaxy once more? And that's what it was. It makes sense for Palpatine to lay dormant throughout this trilogy. We don't need to see him in the previous two movies. They already did that. So let's approach the character in a different way. And to me, it just makes sense. I don't need to see him in the previous two movies. It makes it for more of a surprise, actually. I mean, third chapters in movies always go for broke. You know, you want to unveil something to the audience that they did not expect. And I would bet that most people didn't expect that Palpatine was going to be her grandfather. And this presents some really conflicting issues with our main character, Rey. She's got to deal with the fact that her grandfather is the most evil person in the galaxy. That's a lot to put on a person. And it also kind of flips things between her and Kylo, because Kylo is starting to slowly become Ben again. You know, you have that great scene where he sees his father and Han Solo tells him that I'm not a ghost, I'm a memory, which was a beautiful scene, by the way. So throughout this movie, Kylo Ren is slowly getting pulled to the good. Rey is slowly conflicted and getting pulled to the bad. I love that stuff, guys. I don't know what you hate about that. I mean, really, that's Star Wars in a nutshell, too. Star Wars is about the light side and the dark side. This movie really has all that stuff. I know a lot of you are saying that Vader's sacrifice, it means nothing. I disagree. You know, I think that's what life is. Life is a series of accomplishments, of letdowns, of failures. But it keeps going. It goes on. And that's what this whole chapter really is. It's progression. It's moving forward after what happened before. It's great that Vader gave his life, and it still is a beautiful thing. This doesn't take away from that, in my opinion. This is what doesn't take away from that. At the end, when Rey and Kylo Ren are confronted with Palpatine, Rey, you know, she's defeated. And then all of a sudden, all these Force ghosts come out, and one of those Force ghosts is Anakin Skywalker. We hear his voice talking to Rey. To me, that right there reinforces Vader's sacrifice in Return of the Jedi. It's like Vader comes back and says, hey, I'm still here. I'm still fighting. I still have your back. I love that. And also, this isn't spoiler stuff, but I just love the way this movie looks. I like that Palpatine in this movie is very dark and sinister. It almost feels like a horror movie, a gothic movie. The setting of that last act in Exegol, I think it's Exegol, with, you know, the really dark, sinister blues, just beautiful. To me, that's just eye candy. And Star Wars is full of eye candy. So I love how dark they went in this movie. And also another revelation in this movie is that Rey has the power to bring those back from the dead. She does that with Kylo Ren at the end of the movie. Again, this is thread in the fabric of Star Wars. It's calling back those past events. Darth Plagueis the Wise, he had the power to bring those back to the dead. I think Rise of Skywalker did that beautifully by grabbing those little plot points throughout the entire franchise, from the prequel trilogy, from the original trilogy. I think that's what you want to do in the final movie in the third trilogy. You want to bring it all together. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect, but I think years from now, I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at Rise of Skywalker and I'm going to be satisfied. I'm going to enjoy the hell out of it. And then Rey creates her own new lightsaber, a yellow lightsaber, and I think that's cool. She's preparing her own path forward. So it kind of separates her from the rest, but she still, you know, honors and respects the Skywalkers. I actually love the last scene when she actually says her last name is Skywalker. I thought that was beautiful. You know, to pay homage to Luke Skywalker, to Anakin Skywalker, you know, for having her back. That scene where Luke, you know, she comes to Luke and she tells Luke, I'm done. I just want to do what you did. And J.J. Abrams puts up a big middle finger, along with Mark Hamill, to Rian Johnson. It's funny. But this was Luke's redemption. You know, I love that line where Luke says, I was wrong. And I think there's a lot of weight to that statement, you know, because somebody as powerful, as respected as Luke Skywalker to admit, I was wrong. Nobody's perfect. And then after that, call back to Yoda in Empire Strikes Back and the X-Wing, Luke using the Force, bringing the X-Wing out. It just brings everything full circle. And not seeing Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi just be a complete badass. I think what they did in this movie, it makes up for it. It justifies Luke Skywalker in this trilogy. Really, this movie makes me want to go back and watch The Last Jedi, knowing what I know now. There's still some big problems with that movie in terms of the script and in terms of the comedy. A lot of it does feel one note to me, but there are some things that are fixed in The Last Jedi because of Rise of Skywalker, and I love that. Also, a word on C-3PO. I was actually just watching Sean Chandler's review, and he mentions C-3PO and how he actually has more to do in this movie than he does in all of the previous movies. And that kind of blew my mind because, yes, C-3PO actually is probably his best in this movie. And he gives the ultimate sacrifice. You know, he's willing to shut himself down, wipe himself clean for the mission to push this thing forward. So guys, in the end, I'm definitely sticking with my rating of Trapped on an Island. I still have only seen the movie once. I'm going to see it again this week. I can't get it out of my head. You know, I really enjoyed this movie quite a bit, but there's still so much there to process, and I'm looking forward to letting it settle. I did get some jabs and some comments in my non-spoiler review saying, and look, we'll give it 6 months, you're going to hate it just like you hated Last Jedi. It's Star Wars, people, okay? Everybody changes their mind about these movies. I'll change my mind 5 more times. I'm not going to apologize for it, you assholes. So anyway, guys, if you've seen the movie twice, let me know in the comments. Also, if you have kids that are young, let me know if they liked the movie. Really curious. And I'm just kidding. You guys aren't assholes. I love you. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day. And on Fridays, we do Free for All Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.